So I know that what we're looking at here is a bit of an unconventional background. I do happen to be in Dubai, but I recently got my hands on the brand new Petra by Lattafa. And this is a perfume that I purchased on the TikTok shop of all places. I had the opportunity to talk about this one recently on TikTok, and now I'm doing a full-blown review on YouTube. And this is a perfume that I tried initially last week. This is the brand new release from Lattafa, and everybody knows that when Lattafa puts out a fragrance, they cross every T, they dot every I, and there is no exception with this one. This is a smoky plum, but also tuberose fragrance. So it's really interesting because here you have a contrast of like this sweet, syrupy plum liqueur with a hint of smoke, but then you also have like this clean yet starchy white floral tonality in the heart. Now, the thing with Lattafa perfumes is that, and I think this has become an established narrative, they produce fragrances that are reminiscent of more popular DNA. So in other words, they have something like Khamra, which a lot of people compare to Angel Share. They also have so many other fragrances that get compared to either very popular niche perfumes or designer perfumes. His confession is Black Tie by Celine. Then we have her confession, which is Blanche Bête by Liquide Imaginaire. Well, with Petra, this one gets compared to Quattro Pizzi by Casa Moratti. Now that one is quite floral. The floral components definitely shine all the way through with that fragrance. But with this fragrance, it takes it in a bit more of like an exotic, fruity, and syrupy direction. And that's on account of the plum. So I will try it again. Even though I've worn this multiple days in a row, I am borrowing a friend's bottle for the purposes of this review, but I do have my own, which I'm waiting to get in the mail because, like I said, I purchased it some time ago. This fragrance opens up very boozy. It has like this rum thing happening in the opening. There's a hint of spice. I'm also getting a touch of smoke from this fragrance as well, which is really interesting because I was not expecting that. I'm getting that plum liqueur thing happening in here. The plum, the booziness, it's sweet. You do have a bit of an ambery backbone, but it's not overly resinous. The majority of that thickness or the density or the viscosity that I get from this fragrance, I would say comes from the plum. I love how it's sweet, but in an exotic way. And it is quite different from other plum fragrances that I've tried. Whether we're comparing this one to Andy Warhol Face Edition by Bond No. 9 or Plum Japonais by Tom Ford or even Plum and Cognac by Sense of Wood. This one is actually quite different. And this is a really interesting twist on that Quattro Pizzi DNA. Now, this is not a clone. This is not, it is inspired by, but it is not a one-to-one match of the original. This one is a twist, or it takes inspiration from Quattro Pizzi, but it still manages to do its own thing on account of the other things that are happening outside of that tuberose ingredient. Now, the tuberose in here just creates this beautiful diffusiveness to the fragrance. So for anybody who's tried the original, you know that it's very heavy-handed on the floral components. What this one does is it takes that floral tonality and it actually like adds some density to it. It adds some richness to it. It adds this almost mysterious layer to the fragrance. I would say with the original, after which this is modeled, that one is very casual. It has a formal personality to it as well, but it's a very feminine, outgoing, statement-making fragrance. This one makes it a bit more bold, a bit more charismatic, a bit more mysterious even. It adds some complexity to the formula, and it almost puts it in unisex or totally androgynous territory, whereas the original, one might argue, is a bit feminine leaning. And I think a lot of people have those traditional associations between floral perfumes and feminine perfumes. I think Petra by Lattafa, it is such a beautiful fragrance. Lattafa is one of those brands where I love everything they put out. I think even with the Bade Al Oud collection, whether we're talking about Sublime, which is their take on Eden Juicy Apple by Kayali, or Noble Blush, which is a bit more of like a milky rose perfume, or even something like Khamra Dukan, which is the newest fragrance, which I did find similar to Khamra Kawa, which is their coffee-based offering with booze and cinnamon and amber and all these other things. I think Lattafa is just one of those brands where they put out a fragrance. We know that it's inspired by something else, with the exception of fragrances like Teriyaki Intense, which is another unique plum-based fragrance, but that one is composed by Kenton Biche, who is a really phenomenal perfumer. He's worked on Delina by Marley and Very Good Girl by Carolina Herrera. But I think in the case of this fragrance, we're also dealing with something that is semi-original, albeit still borrowing influences from another really popular niche fragrance, which is interesting because as far as Casa Moratti fragrances go, that is not the most popular one, or that is not the one that has really made its name known for the brand. We have, of course, fragrances like Mephisto Gentiluomo, we have Lira, we have Italica. There are so many other fragrances from the Casa Moratti line that I think have achieved some sort of virality in the fragrance community. But Quattro Pizzi is a really interesting one because the tuberose in there is just so natural, so photorealistic. And I really love what this brand has done in taking that DNA, but also making it their own. Now, I think the other thing to be mentioned when it comes to Lattafa perfumes is that they're generally long lasting. And this fragrance is no exception. I am getting in the vein of, I want to say 8 hours longevity from this fragrance. It is quite diffusive, beyond an arm's length, but really only for like the first half hour of application. Right around hour 6, it became an elbow's length scent. Right around hour 8 or 9, it becomes a skin scent. So of course, it is one of the better performing fragrances from the brand as far as the projection is concerned. As far as longevity is concerned, I think perfumes like Khamra really have this one beat. And I only say that because that's a very dense fragrance. You know, some of the darker offerings, whether we're talking about like old school classics like Ragba or Amir Al Oud, those fragrances give you incredible longevity. But I think because this is a bit more of a non-linear fragrance, you're going to get more of a steady progression on your skin. It's going to, you know, change and transform and evolve into something different from hour 1 to hour 3 to hour 7. So this is one where you really have to keep smelling your hand and revisiting it, but that sweet, exotic, fruity, slightly smoky, syrupy thing that's happening in here with the plum liqueur, that booziness, and also that tuberose that is really creating this diffusiveness. It makes it a beautiful fragrance. Versatility on this one, I can see this one being enjoyed formally. I think this is going to be a spring, fall, and winter fragrance. I can see some elements of it being a little bit too heavy-handed in the summertime, unless, of course, you're wearing it on a summer evening, then I think you can enjoy this one very, very comfortably. I would also say that this is perfectly unisex. I think Quattro Pizzi for a lot of people leans feminine, but I think this one is going to be perfectly unisex for a lot of people. And I also find that this is going to cater to a bit of an older demographic. I can see some other Lattafa perfumes catering to a younger demographic, especially some of the fresher offerings from the brand. But this is one that I think is really going to be appreciated by those who have more experience in dealing with niche perfumes. Not necessarily calling this niche per se, but Quattro Pizzi is niche. And so because this one is closely modeled after that, I think people will really appreciate this DNA if they've sampled a nice amount of niche fragrances. Presentation on this fragrance, I really love the fact that it looks like fine china. It also reminds me of some of the limited editions of Dolce & Gabbana fragrances in the light blue series that kind of have like this blue and white aesthetic with this floral print to it. But I also really like the uniqueness of the bottle. You can tell that the base actually comes up a little bit on the inside of the bottle. The atomizer is nice and wide, even though it's not pressurized, and the cap does click into place. You can pick it up from the cap, but it is a pretty heavy bottle, so you've been warned. My final verdict on this fragrance is I think it's one of Lattafa's best. And I know Lattafa has been putting out so many fragrances. I just acquired Opulent Dubai, which is their take on God of Fire by Stefan Humbert Lucas. And I think that's a beautiful fragrance, perfect for the summertime. See, that's a fragrance that I would say might cater to a younger demographic because of the citrus and the mango, and it's a bit of a brighter olfactive personality. This one darkens things up a little bit while still maintaining or retaining that diffusiveness. Petra by Lattafa is a fantastic fragrance, especially for the price point. When I bought it, it was like 45 bucks. And the whole presentation, box and all, is quite elaborate. It comes in this cylindrical container. At the end of the day, Lattafa is synonymous with affordability, with quality, and they just have such a phenomenal reputation for themselves. I would highly urge you to check out Petra, especially if you don't mind having a bit of a floral thing happening in your fragrances. This is one that I'm pretty confident you're going to love. They really knocked it out of the park with this one, and I'm just really happy to have this one in my collection. So there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me today. That was my review of the brand new Petra by Lattafa. I do happen to be in Dubai. I'm here on business. It's a bit of an unconventional location for me, but I am enjoying myself. I just came from the mall, and I'm gonna sit down and have some lunch now. So thank you so much for watching. If you took anything of value from today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you would consider supporting the channel by clicking subscribe, hitting the bell, and giving this video a thumbs up. It would really mean a lot to me. Thanks again for watching. I love you all. We'll see you tomorrow with a new episode. Bye.